And welcome aboard, everybody. Michael Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation. Of course, we have a huge topic to discuss today. Carlos Correa decides not to go to the Mets. Instead, signs to the Minnesota Twins. Let's talk about it. So, after 3 weeks under the presumption that the Mets, and specifically Steve Cohen and the New York Mets, had signed Carlos Correa, swooped in and signed Carlos Correa away from the San Francisco Giants on a 12-year, $315 million contract. Negotiations, of course, over the last several weeks had stalled. Concerns over Correa's physical, much like the San Francisco Giants had concerns over Correa's physical. Concerns over his surgically repaired right leg that Correa had back in 2014, an injury that he suffered in the minor leagues, an injury that hadn't cost him any time up to this point in his career, but the Mets saw the red flag as far as his leg was concerned. It was the same red flag that the San Francisco Giants saw. The reason why the San Francisco Giants ended up balking on their 13-year, $350 million offer, the Mets decided to back away and not sign Carlos Correa to that big contract. Yes, and there's many different angles that you can take a look at this. You could be disappointed. And certainly, look, while I didn't expect it at the time, when the Mets surprisingly had presumably signed Correa, his addition would have been a very solid one to this Mets lineup. This was a player who had been an all-star in Houston, a player who hit .291 just last season with Minnesota. He would have been a solid addition. Of course, his friendship with Francisco Lindor, notwithstanding, would have been a very interesting dynamic on the left side of the infield. That being said, as has been pointed out throughout the day on Tuesday, Carlos Correa was a luxury item. Yes, Steve Cohen would have liked to have added Correa, and in many ways he had egg on his face because as soon as the Giants decided not to sign Correa because of concerns over his leg, the Mets decided, hey, let's go right ahead and sign this guy. After Scott Boras called Steve Cohen up and said, hey, we're back on the market. So yes, there is some egg on the face there for the Mets, but there really isn't that much. Because the Mets just keep move on to another player. The potential of saving all that money, potentially saving those $315 million and using it elsewhere where there is greater need. And I say that because you look at the Mets, you look at their third base situation, it isn't that bad. It wasn't that bad going in anyway. It really wasn't. Eduardo Escobar did a solid job at third base last season, is a good defensive third baseman, had 20 home runs last season, 69 RBIs, did an outstanding job in the second half of the season, is a good veteran presence in the clubhouse. Nothing wrong with having Eduardo Escobar as your third baseman. And then you had the prospect of Brett Baty potentially being in the mix at some point in this upcoming season. Impressed a little bit as a rookie in the handful of games that he got a chance to play at the major league level, but he is considered one of the Mets' top prospects, is a natural third baseman, left-handed hitter with some power. Let's see what Brett Baty can be. I'd rather see, if I'm the Mets and if I'm a Met fan, I'd rather see what Brett Baty can be. Can he be a superstar player in the making at some point down the road? I don't know. We'll see. I'd rather have the veteran guy that I know has been fairly successful for at least another year in Eduardo Escobar. And it's not like the Mets aren't going to have options, whether it be at the trade deadline or whether it be next offseason. Already hearing rumblings that the Mets saying, hey, look, if we back out of this deal with Carlos Correa, there's always the chance that Manny Machado, who could be a free agent next offseason, and the Mets could go ahead and pick him up and let him play third base. Or the Mets could take a big chunk of that money and go out and sign someone like a Shohei Ohtani, who is all-world, of course, a pitcher and a designated hitter. He can do it all. There's other avenues that the Mets can address. So yes, losing Correa initially, the reaction would be, man, that sucks. But at the same time, when you step back and when you look at it, you realize it isn't the worst thing in the world. And the Mets had concerns. If the Mets had legitimate concerns, got up to the point where they felt that they needed to put in the contract stipulation and language that said that Correa had to have a physical every single year of a contract, then there is concerns, not so much of what he has been. We know he's been a great player, but of what this injury may do to him and how it may affect him as he wears down and gets older. That's what you're paying for as the Mets. And you want to make that commitment for a decade, that's going to be pretty risky. That's why the Giants backed out, and that's why the Mets back out. So let Carlos Correa, and look, I have nothing against the guy. Okay, we'll see what the rest of his career is going to look like in Minnesota. Good luck to him. But for the Mets, it was the smart thing, the sound thing. Sometimes the best thing to do, the best deals you make are the ones you don't make. And that gets underplayed a lot in sports and a lot in Major League Baseball. The best trades are the ones you don't make sometimes. The best signings are the ones you do not make. And we'll see if the Mets can make the most of it. We'll see if Brett Beatty can make the most of this opportunity for himself now moving forward with a shot at the third base job. Competing against a solid veteran who has helped him out over the last year in Eduardo Escobar. I think it's going to be a fascinating competition in that regard. It also opens up the Mets to really focus in on a position that they do need to fill right now, and that's a designated hitter. They still need to find one. You want to go into the season with, Darren Ruff and Daniel Vogelbach, and I have nothing against Vogelbach, but is that the DH platoon you want? There are hitters out there. Some of them big names. Some of them, though, are getting up there in age, though. Mike Moustakas, a third baseman by trade, but he could be a DH if you needed to go that route. He's a free agent. Nelson Cruz, now 43 years old, will be 43 years old. It's kind of iffy right there, but he is, of course, now an all-time full-time DH. Adam Duvall, former of the Braves, he's an outfielder. He can also be a DH. Andrew McCutchen, I don't know what you're going to get from him at this point. 37 years old. His legs probably not as good as they were in the past, as far as speed is concerned. But he's out there if you want to go make a pick up there. Trey Mancini, 31 years old. Yulieski Gurriel, first baseman, now 39, but, maybe you can make him a DH as well. So there are named players out there. There are guys who have had success at the Major League level, who have pop, who can hit for some average, that are still available. Maybe not big names. Maybe not the big names. But at this point in the offseason, as you're trying to make the roster the best you can, as you head down these last handful of weeks before convening in spring training, why not bring one of these veteran guys in here and have a shot at DH and see what happens? It can't hurt. And we'll see how things play out over the course of a season and how the Mets want to address getting that big-time bat and when they can find that bat down the road. Doesn't have to be an infielder. Doesn't have to be third base. Doesn't have to be second base. Doesn't have to, could be outfield, could be DH. It's now an open book, and that's what you want from the Mets right now. Try to take a look at it, as I say, with the glass half full instead of the glass half empty. So, folks, like and subscribe here on the Sports Talk Nation, and we got a lot more content coming. Of course, the Giants now in the playoffs, going up against the Vikings. We will share a interview that I'm going to be doing with a writer from The Athletic. We're going to share that with you guys in the next couple of days. Also, I really want to do a Jets roundtable because right now the Jet offseason is getting underway. It's starting to sound like a clown show. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to get a roundtable together, and we're going to post that as well. I haven't done any Jet-related stuff since the season really started to collapse after that loss to Seattle. Now it's time. Now it's time. Now it's time. Again, like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Sports Talk Nation.